The greatest era of pyramid building has got to be that of the Old Kingdom of ancient Egypt. So that's about 2686 to 2181 BC. Many of the Old Kingdom pyramids have withstood the test of time and still today stand defiantly among the architecture of our modern world, and yet many that came later have crumbled away to nothing. I have been researching the pyramids one by one, looking for clues and working out which ones warrant a visit. And this episode is a summary of my many shorter episodes on this subject. I believe I have a unique perspective on the mysteries of these ancient marvels, their origins, their purpose, and why the dynastic Egyptians were so incredibly fascinated by this type of structure. Pyramid building started in the Third Dynasty, and so let's have a look at what pyramids were built during this period. There are 3 pyramids, and the first one is the magnificent step pyramid. The Pyramid of Djoser is the first pyramid recognized as a pyramid by archaeology, located in Saqqara. It's dated to between 2686 and 2613 BC, and that's the 3rd dynasty of ancient Egypt. It has a base of 121 by 109 meters and a height of approximately 60 meters. So let's move on to the second pyramid, which is the Pyramid of Sekhemhet, otherwise known as
the Unfinished Pyramid.
This 3D rendition of the unfinished pyramid is absolutely fascinating. Look at all those chambers going all around the pyramid. Of course, as usual, no body was actually found in this pyramid. But they did find a sarcophagus, and it was completely empty. But it was sealed when they found it. And all they actually found that was of any interest other than the sarcophagus was some solid gold jewelry. The next pyramid is the Pyramid of Kaaba. The layer pyramid of Kaaba looks like just a pile of rubble, but it's one of 2 pyramids that haven't been researched very well because they're actually inaccessible even to archaeologists, due to them being categorized as being in a restricted military site. I can't show you any video footage of inside, but here's a 3D rendition by Robin Morgan, which is very useful, and some other diagrams to give you a fair idea of what is underneath this pyramid, because it's quite fascinating and it's quite similar to the Sekhemhet pyramid. But oh boy, would I love to get inside there and have a good look around. So that's it for the 3rd dynasty's pyramids. So only 3 known pyramids for the 3rd dynasty, and they're all quite interesting. The 4th dynasty is the greatest of all the dynasties when it comes to pyramid building. And we'll see that shortly with the Great Pyramid itself, and the pyramids on Giza, and the 3 pyramids attributed to Snefru. When you're looking at this pyramid from a distance, you think, oh, it's not very big. But then as you get closer and closer, you realize it's actually quite a big pyramid. This is some clips from Megalithomania. And I didn't get to go inside this pyramid. I just got to see it from the outside. But here's a few clips from Megalithomania showing you what it's like inside. Now we're still on the same pharaoh, Snefru, but let's have a look at the next pyramid. The Bent Pyramid is another pyramid also attributed to the pharaoh Snefru. And when I went to this pyramid, I was quite impressed with the fact that it still had all its casing stones, or at least the majority of them. The footage I'm showing you now is actually from the tour I was on in 2022. And the footage was taken by Ancient Connection, who was also on the tour at the same time. Here's a diagram. It's actually quite a long way down, then you get to a flat area, and then you head upwards. So that's 2 massive pyramids so far attributed to Snefru. Now let's have a look at the 3rd and final pyramid that's been attributed to Snefru. The 3rd pyramid is the Red Pyramid. It was originally covered in limestone casing stones, which made it shine pretty much the same way as the Great Pyramid originally did. When I walked the full length around each of its 4 sides, I was stunned by the size. It really felt so similar to the Great Pyramid. By the way, the reason archaeologists believe that it was attributed to Djoser, as well as the other 2 pyramids, was because he had his seal on the inside of the casing stones. There was nothing inside the pyramid to indicate anything along those lines, though. Now we move on to Giza, and of course, we start with the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid speaks for itself, and it has a lot to say. From the incredible precision in the structure and its alignment, through to the many mysteries of its construction and its design. The more you learn about the Great Pyramid, the more it leaves you wanting to know more. The Great Pyramid of Giza was attributed to the pharaoh Khufu, also known as Cheops. Today it is one of the biggest tourist attractions in the world, but it was just as famous in the ancient times as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. According to archaeologists, it was built around 2580 BC-ish during the Old Kingdom. Today it sits majestically on the Giza Plateau, surrounded by tombs and temples. This may be a bit of a surprise because the next pyramid is not on Giza. You might think you've got Khufu, then Khafre, then Menkaure, but no, in between Khufu and Khafre there is Djedre. Located at Abu Rawash, this pyramid doesn't look much like a pyramid. It looks more like a pile of rubble. But 4,000 years ago, it was a fully formed pyramid. But 2,000 years ago, it got dismantled by the Romans, who decided that the stone was very useful for other things. The pyramid is attributed to the pharaoh Djefre, who was a son of Khufu and took over as pharaoh after his father passed away. Today, all that is left of this structure is some rubble and a fairly deep shaft, which was the centre of the pyramid. The next pyramid is still not at Giza, and it looks an awfully lot like the previous one that we've just discussed. But this is the Pyramid of Baka. This T-shaped shaft structure, dug deep into the bedrock, is called the Unfinished Pyramid of Zawiat el-Aryan, and is attributed to a pharaoh, or maybe he's a prince, called Baka, apparently of the 4th dynasty. Once rediscovered, it originally had the rather ominous name of Pyramid 13. Archaeologist Alessandro Barsanti took an unhealthy interest in this structure, eventually dissecting it till it could not be reassembled. There's very little photographic evidence for this site, as it's currently inaccessible in a military zone, but it at least is in a movie called Land of the Pharaohs. Now we are back at Giza with the Pyramid of Khafre. See this good-looking guy here? Not the falcon, that's Horus, the pharaoh. This guy is called Khafre or Khafra. He is the pharaoh that the middle pyramid at Giza is attributed to. It's easy to spot his pyramid because it's the only one where there are still casing stones at the very top of the pyramid. There are two passageways into this pyramid. There's the one from the top, but the one from the bottom goes straight into the bedrock and continues along in bedrock, as is the main chamber. Once you get into the main chamber, the first thing that stands out is the statement, "I was here," by Belzioni, who was a famous archaeologist. Then there is the red granite box with a lid. So we're still at Giza, but this time we're at the Pyramid of Menkaure. Although the pyramid attributed to Menkaure is the smallest of the three large pyramids of Giza, it is nevertheless gigantic. Not only did it have the beautiful white Tura limestone on it, the lower part had polygonal granite. As for what's inside, there's a descending passage that goes down through and into the bedrock towards the burial chamber. The most striking feature of this pyramid is this enormous gash in the middle of I think it's the north side. So in about 1196, the Sultan, the son of Saladin, decided that it would be a really great idea to demolish and remove all the Giza pyramids, and decided to start with the Menkaure pyramid. But it proved far too large and dangerous a job. And thank goodness for that, because otherwise Giza would not look the way it does today. And that brings us to the end of the fourth dynasty, the greatest pyramid dynasty of them all, but there's still lots more pyramids to come. The pyramids of the fifth dynasty. So far we've looked at the third dynasty, which was a great start with the step pyramid, and the fourth dynasty, which includes the three great pyramids that sit on the Giza Plateau. But now we move into the fifth dynasty, and we find that the techniques are deteriorating. The skill level doesn't seem quite so good. Admittedly, the first pyramid in this collection is still made fully of blocks, but it soon deteriorates into blocks on the outside and rubble as filler between the main portions of the building, which of course meant that as soon as the outer stones were removed, you're just left with a big pile of rubble. So let's look at them one by one. Not far from the step pyramid of Djoser lurks the less impressive pyramid of Userkaf. Today it looks just like a pile of rubble, and that's for fairly good reasons, because it was in fact built as a pile of rough cut blocks and rubble with some nice cladding on the outside. So assuming that it was built when the archaeologists say it was built, then about 1,200 years later, Ramses II, aka Ramses the Great, got his son, the very famous Khayyam Waset. He got him to do some restoration of sites, and apparently Khayyam Waset found some amazing things while he was doing all this work. This is a quick look at the structure, and it's underneath the pyramid, i.e. it's underground. And moving on to the next pyramid that I have been to personally, the Pyramid of Sahure. This pyramid is not going to be very easily described in under 1 minute. I was there in 2022 with Eni Exti, who was my guide at the time. Abusir was on my list because of the stories of the water that were around at this pyramid. And especially because the mortuary temple was part of the cult of Sekhmet, and I'm a big Sekhmet fan. One of the saddest parts about visiting this pyramid is it's pretty clear that the external structure has been decimated by, stone thieves, and apparently it's the same internally as well. Here's a picture of the internal chamber from Wikipedia, and it has an interesting gabled ceiling of of 3 lots of stone and a main chamber underneath the tip of the pyramid. And moving on to the next pyramid on our list. This pyramid is attributed to Neferkare Kakai, who reigned for somewhere between 8 and 11 years. But it's really interesting that he is recognized as a kind leader, which is kind of unusual for the pharaohs. Archaeologists say that his pyramid was originally supposed to be a step pyramid, but for some reason the design was changed along the way into a true pyramid. It was part of a rather large pyramid complex at Abu Sir. Here's an artist's rendition of how it might have looked when there was water around Abu Sir. Apparently this is one pyramid that won't be explored again because of the amount of damage that's been done to the interior and the exterior of the pyramid. And moving on, the next pyramid on our list is the not-so-pyramid-like pyramid of Nefer-Efre, which didn't end up being a pyramid. It actually ended up becoming a mastaba. Located in Abu Sir, it was abandoned during the second year of the reign of Nefer-Efre, when archaeologists theorized that he may in fact have died. And so the structure was converted by his successor into a mastaba. He didn't end up getting buried in the style that he was expecting, but he did at least end up on the king's list, or on some of the king's lists, I should say. Quite a few statues and heads of Nefer-Efre have been found, and although a mummy wasn't found in the pyramid, bits of a body and wrapping have been found, and as well as a piece of the sarcophagus. And the next pyramid is the pyramid of Shep-Seskare. There is a lot of uncertainty around Shep-Seskare by archaeologists. For example, how long he reigned. But there is one thing that the archaeologists agree with, and that is that his pyramid was abandoned immediately after it had been, the foundation been flattened out and a hole started. So the area that had been flattened was roughly 100 meters squared. But this concept of abandoning a project doesn't ring true to me. The Egyptians were always using older things, reusing them, restoring them, and even continuing projects others had started. So I think there was actually something fundamentally wrong with this site, and they only discovered it once they started digging. For example, once they got so far, it started to flood. The next pyramid is for the pharaoh Nusere-Ini. Nusere-Ini, with a reign of between 24 to 35 years, built, or at least was involved with, a wide range of pyramids at Abu Sir. Archaeologists theorize that Nusere-Ini chose to finish off the projects of his father, mother, and brother that were unfinished, and then he went on to start and complete his own pyramid and that of his queens. The structure doesn't look like much now, but when it was finished and covered in limestone, it would have been 50 meters high at least. The pyramid is currently inaccessible due to it being very dangerous to attempt to go inside. The next on our list is the pyramid of Menkaure. If this pyramid doesn't excite the adventurer in you, then nothing will. Look at that black stone door or sarcophagus or box lid or whatever you want to call it, but it's amazing. In 2008, a little-known pyramid that had been lost and then found in the mid-1800s and then lost once again, only to be once more found and not recycled as firelighters by a team led by Zahi Hawass. The name of this pyramid is the Headless Pyramid, and I know it doesn't sound very Egyptological, but it was a name given to it by the locals when it was first found in the 1800s. And the name kind of stuck. And this headless pyramid is currently attributed to Menkaure Khaya, even though no inscriptions have been found. This is the 19th pyramid on our list. It's the pyramid of Djedkare Isisi. Archaeologists believe it is likely that Djedkare enjoyed a reign of 40 years or maybe even more, and he was known for doing a bit of reforming in his time, as well as doing a bit of trade, some exploration, and a smattering of war. And of course, he built a pyramid. The pyramid still looks like a pyramid, even though it's been robbed of its casing stones and its top 3 layers are gone. They found many fragments of a basalt sarcophagus and a body. Archaeologists believe that it is the pharaoh's body, but radiocarbon dating, it just doesn't line up. The valley temple of the pyramid is buried underneath modern housing. The Pyramid of Unas is the 20th on our list of pyramids. The reign of Unas is thought to have lasted up to about 30 years, but it was a period of economic decline. He was the last pharaoh of the 5th dynasty, and he had the smallest pyramid. The pyramid was only 6 steps high and was made smooth-sided, with the Tura limestone casing stones. The most interesting aspect of this pyramid is that it is the first place that the pyramid texts actually start to appear. Other than that, there's not very much to tell you about the Pyramid of Unas. And that's the end of the pyramids of the 5th dynasty. The 6th dynasty is the final dynasty in the Old Kingdom. And by this time that the 6th dynasty came along, the pyramids weren't built very well at all. So let's jump straight in with pyramid number 21, which was for Teti. The 21st pyramid on our list of pyramids is the Pyramid of Teti of the 6th dynasty. This is another site that Khayyam Waset took an interest in, and I get very excited about any location that Khayyam Waset was involved in. He was a prince during the reign of Ramses the Great, and he spent an awful lot of time exploring and restoring the more ancient sites, including this one. The stories of some of these activities are referred to as mythology because he found magical things at sites like this, some of which were already over 1,000 years old when Khayyam Waset was taking an interest in them. As for this pyramid, from above the ground it's a bit of a mess, but underground the portions of the pyramid are mostly intact and some interesting artifacts were found inside. And now moving on to Pepi I. Pepi I was the 3rd pharaoh in the 6th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. He ruled for over 40 years. He's actually known as one of the most prolific builders of the Old Kingdom. Not that there's a lot to show for him these days, but at Saqqara, he built not only his own 6-step, 52-metre-high pyramid, but at least 6 pyramids for his queens. The building technique used was roughly cut up blocks of limestone together with mortar and then beautifully encased with Tura limestone. Hence, it was an easy target to dismantle. The underground part of the pyramid had 3 chambers, and in the main chamber there is the equivalent of a stone sarcophagus. Next pyramid is the Pyramid of Merenre, who ruled Egypt for maybe up to about 11 years. Now, Merenre travelled a lot, especially to Nubia, for trading. In fact, he took his trading with Nubia so seriously that he actually built a canal in the first cataract to make it all very much easier. He was interested in quarrying for granite, travertine, alabaster, etc. Not that you'd know it now, since most of the places that he's used it on have been basically dismantled. His pyramid complex, much like his other structures, has little left today. And there was also a black basalt stone box, sarcophagus, whatever you want to call it. There was a mummy, but it's unknown if that was Merin-Re, and the site is very difficult to get to. Also, it's just not available to the public. The last pharaoh in the 6th dynasty to build a pyramid was Pepi II. He was only 6 years old when he found himself pharaoh, and he reigned for at least 11 years during a fairly unpleasant time for the pharaoh, as the nomarchs had grown in power and the pharaoh's power had reduced significantly. This decline marked not only the end of the 6th dynasty, but also the end of the Old Kingdom. His successor didn't even last a year before the whole thing had ended. The pyramid that he built was made of limestone chunks and clay mortar with a nice casing stone on it. So understandably, it's not in great condition today. So that is the end of the 6th dynasty, and with it also the end of the Old Kingdom. If you enjoyed this brief dive into the pyramids of the Old Kingdom, please be sure to like and subscribe, and maybe even click on the bell icon, because I'm off to Egypt shortly, and so there's lots of really interesting episodes about to appear on my channel. So thank you for watching to the end. Bye.